Good morning, and welcome to the live at the Waterhole show. My name is Stefan Winterbrew, and I'm going to be your naturalist for the duration of the show, the next 3 hours or so. And what we've done is we've opened up on Oldonyo, Africa Oldonyo, which is a camera that we have in Kenya and is really been spectacular over the last couple of weeks and months, providing spectacles of nature that is one of the most special that we've seen in such a long time. And today is absolutely no different. We have some Maasai giraffe, plain zebra, and a magnificent bull elephant in the shot this morning. We'd love to hear from you. It's an interactive show, so please feel free to send through your questions and any comments that you have, and let's have a chat. I'd really, really love to hear from you this morning, and bring discussions to the table if you want to know something specifically, or you've made a comment or an observation on another show, and it's a topic for for conversation. Let's do it. And if you don't know how to ask a question, you just literally have to go and log on to the WildEarth website, register, and you'll be able to get some directions from there. It is live, and so what's happening right now is what you're seeing coming out of the cameras, just a couple of seconds delay, and it does lend a type of excitement to what we're going to be experiencing over the next couple of hours, because I don't know what we're going to be seeing any more than what you do. And it's made especially special by these fantastic cameras that we have access to. They are They have zooming capabilities, they can move up and down, they can move left and right, and we have a number of them all over southern Africa, Namibia. We've got this one up in Kenya, and I, for one, cannot wait to share the rest of the morning with you for sure. It's such a special thing to see a giraffe drink. As we've discussed before, there's a certain vulnerability to these animals when they have their head down and their legs splayed like that. Definitely doesn't allow them to get up and into action very quickly. And I think that that vulnerability is, I don't know, I think it's intriguing. The weather in Kenya today looks glorious. Out where I am, it's a bit hazy. There's a cloud bank that's busy rolling in, and there was high wind speeds over the night. It was crazy, just for an hour or so. But we woke up this morning to a glorious day. But it is slowly clouded over, so there's definitely some weather patterns moving in and around our areas. And we've got a small summary for you on the various locations that we operate in, so why don't we go and have a look at that? As you can see from that brief summary, we've come down in temperature from yesterday across most of the locations. Not by very much. We've gone from the low hundreds into the sort of low 90s from a Fahrenheit point of view. So touching 40s yesterday, into the upper 20s and around 30s, 30 to mid 30s in most of the locations. So I have the same prediction that I had yesterday, and that it is warm enough for there to be a parade of animals through the various locations. Probably not as busy as it was yesterday. Yesterday, for example, this particular Africam or Donyo cam had an initial turnaround of animals every 7.5 minutes or so, and then that slowed down in a day, whereas our other locations only picked up. And eventually, we were crossing from camera to camera every couple of minutes, not really knowing what to choose from. It was an absolute smorgasbord yesterday. Um, a homage to elephants, We had a lot of elephants yesterday across all locations, and today doesn't seem like any difference. Melanie, you've just sent in a great comment this morning. So, well, it's World Gratitude Day today, and Melanie, you are very thankful that you have WildEarth in your life. I'm exactly the same. So, firstly, good morning, Melanie. It's great to hear from you. You're the first person to send in a comment this morning, so a round of applause there. And it's great to hear from you. Keep on sending. And I must agree with you. Just to elaborate on your comment there a little bit. I wake up in the morning looking forward to this live at the Waterhole show like nothing else. I get to talk a lot, looking at animals, interpreting their behavior, getting surprised no end by all the things that we learn and chat about during the shows. And I get to share that all with you all over the world. So cool. So these are plain zebra, and it seems like quite a few of them run on. So 50, you've sent in a comment this morning. So firstly, good morning to you. And you've said that this fellow has quite impressive tusks. And you know what? You are absolutely right. This camera and this area in particular has a lot of really large tusked elephant. And what we forget is because we're being sort of desensitized to it, we don't make comments about them as often as what we should. And you've picked up on that and quite rightly brought our attention sharply back into focus that this particular bull elephant is in such great condition and has a truly magnificent, by general standards, set of tusks. He really does. Are they hanging on the floor in this position? Are they the most magnificent tusks we've seen? No, but they are bigger than most that we see around, 100%. For those of you sharp-eyed out there, you would have noticed that elephant bull cocked his tail for quite some time. It was a good couple of seconds there, and that is a very sure sign that he is a little bit insecure, even if only subconsciously. It's one of those things that you just look at with elephants. You watch their tails, and it betrays their mood. And so let's see if he chases his zebra around. Anna Marie, good morning to you, and hello. Ellie, zebra, and giraffe at Aldonio, you're saying iconic. Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine if we woke up to cheetah, lion, hyena, and hippo at Aldonio. I think it would be a shock. But you're quite right there. This seems to be the name of the game at Aldonio. We've got the fringiate oryx, plain zebra, Maasai giraffe, and generally speaking, bull elephant. We don't really see a lot of females and youngsters at Aldonio. We do see a lot of females and youngsters at our other cameras, but not so much at Aldonio. But that's what makes each of these feeds so special, is that each of them has their mix and their community, and that community comes down to the water, and we get to share in their lives profoundly. And I was just trying to rack my brain and think, have we seen this big tusked elephant before? And his buddy that's just walked in. Interestingly, I think that if I were to make an assessment here, the cocktail that we saw this elephant have was because he sensed that this other bull was on the way. Didn't quite know what or who he was for a while, and then calmed down when they figured out each other. Elephants communicate. Oh, there's an eland, a giant bull eland. Elephants, they communicate using infrasound, which is a much lower frequency sound than what humans can hear, and travels very far through the bush. And so they were chatting to each other way before we saw this other bull elephant.
Chatting around a fire is an ancient practice that has connected humanity for centuries, and we want to keep it alive in our modern age. As an explorer, you'll have access to intimate gatherings with our naturalists, fascinating guests, and experts where we share knowledge, insights, and stories around a crackling fire. Rediscover the power of connection. Sign up to be an explorer today and experience the magic of WildEarth's Fireside Chats.
What we're having a look at here, this eland is Africa's largest antelope. That's the large, sort of bovine-looking antelope with a slightly twisted horn. Oh, here we've got another elephant coming in on a slightly less magnificent tusks, but it would seem holding a higher place on the pecking order. There's an inlet pipe where that elephant has just muscled his way in on. And elephant being elephant and quite picky about the quality of the water that they like to drink, he just muscled his way in there. And I mean, arguably, the elephant with the larger tusks made way for him. And that is quite an observation. We haven't really, personally, and I mean, I've been watching elephants for 25 years, I haven't really determined how they establish pecking order. Obviously, body size and shape, virility, where they are in their must cycle, length and girth of tusks all play a role amongst a few other factors as well. But it doesn't seem to be set in stone. I often get it wrong when predicting who's going to make way for who. And in this particular case, I was proved wrong again. I didn't believe that elephant was going to make way at all, but he ended up doing it. And so, we live to learn, right? These eland that we're looking at here are very similar to those oryx that we find. They seem to be, generally located just in this area. They are the most northerly occurring of the three different species of eland that we get in the areas we got cameras in. These are Patterson's eland. Can't but help but think of a friend of mine, Jamie Patterson, which is another elephant coming in, which was the two elephant coming in, which was a long time. We've seen that guy before with the one tusk, one massive tusk. All right, so why don't we put our theory into play here? You decide who's going to make way for who at the water. The two elephant at the water are standing at the two inlet pipes, the freshwater inlet pipes. That's the prime spot. And so the biggest dude will get the prime spot. So let's have a look and see, who do you think is going to make it? Mr. Bob, I must agree with you there, and I think along with everyone else today that this channel is so cool. It really is. Where else will we be able to get a bird's eye? Well, not a bird's eye view, a cat's eye view. Oh, what up in there? Right, so what we're looking at here is a very interesting interplay between these bull elephant. You'd excuse the Patterson's eland getting in the way. But what we're trying to decide, if you've only just signed on to the channel, is the hierarchy amongst these bull elephant. They're all massive. They're all fully mature. They all are bull elephants in their prime or just past their prime, and quite capable of inflicting tremendous damage to one another if they really chose to. Water being a scarce resource, and especially in the dry season, means that personal comfort zones will be shrunken and thin, and it means that tempers and frustrations will flare up. And what we saw there was an elephant with a massive single tusk come in to drink and was intimidated away by one of the other elephant here. They're all busy posturing at one another, except for this one that's just carrying on drinking. I think we've seen this guy before as well. He's got beautifully symmetrical tusks. I noticed that because I really enjoy that. Marvin, you've asked an interesting question. How is there any water left? Because ellies are such big drinkers, and you're quite right there, Marvin. Big bull elephant like this will drink 200 liters of water in a single sitting, and this little pan absolutely can't sustain that if all it was relying on runoff from rain, which hasn't fallen here in a few weeks. This pan is pumped, Marvin. So even though El Doño is a conservation area of way over 100,000 hectare, 250,000 acre, and sits between and on conservation areas, I don't know, probably numbering in the hundreds of thousands of hectares, even into the millions, if you really start to collectively look at, how big the conservation areas are in this area. They're still fragmented, and there's still corridors between these places, and it does mean that naturally occurring water sources are either impacted by humans in some way, form, or another, or not there anymore for whatever reason. And so conservation bodies have provided these artificial water points, which are very necessary. Um, Case in point is that if they weren't necessary, we wouldn't see the massive volume of animals that we do at this particular water point. Can you imagine if there wasn't this water here, what would happen? And so this water, this little water hole is pumped. There's two water inlets where this elephant has his trunk on the right-hand side is the one. And then on the opposite bank where the eland were just standing is the other. And it will be pumped at times to replenish the level of the water. See this elephant having a great sandbar. We've noticed that elephant will often dust themselves and mud themselves as well. And they do that in an effort to insulate themselves from the sun. And so this pan doesn't have a lot of mud in it or sediment. So there's no use in trying to cover yourself in mud. And so what he's doing is he's just giving himself a light dusting. And it's all in an effort to try and just reduce the effects of the sun on their body and decrease their core body temperature. They're warm blooded and so need to maintain a constant body temperature to stay healthy. And of course, when you've got a blazing sun shining on you from equatorial Africa, it doesn't make that easy. So, yeah, Marvin, I hope that that answered your question.
Hi, my name is Claire. WildEarth has been part of this home for many years as it connects us to the bush and the culture that we love and miss so much. I became an explorer so that other people around the world can get to experience the African bush in this unique way as well. I am beyond excited that I was drawn to win the prize at Ambakala Game Reserve for 3 nights. It is truly a dream come true.
Sign up today and you could be the one experiencing it for yourself.
For me, elephant tusks are just like their trunks. They tend to be the focus of attention, along with their ears. So those three things for me with an elephant are what draw my attention. Obviously, they're always moving, and so are not only highly contrasted, but are always in motion. And I suppose it, why wouldn't they capture attention? But the beauty of an elephant's tusks for me lie in their symmetry, and I enjoy elephant tusks that have a symmetry to them, a nice curve, not too wide, not too skinny, evenly evenly spaced uh, in relation to the skull, the same thickness and length. So for me, symmetry is key, but for you, you might find that the length and the girth of the tusk is more impressive, and maybe some other type of anomaly that makes that animal unique. So an angle of the tusk. It's all up to you. It's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. These ellies will stay. They stick around for a while. They usually do. Trisha, you'd like to know how we estimate the age of an elephant? It's a great question, that Trisha, because there's two parts to what you're asking here. Your key here is, how do I estimate? And that's subjective, and obviously just based on what I perceive as being the key markers, or you. And then there's the actual age of an elephant. Um, and that's a little bit more tricky to determine. So, I'll answer your question specifically. And how do we estimate the age of an elephant? Um, for me, it's their overall, just general impression of size and shape, the GISS, the jizz of an elephant. I look at Initially, I look at the shape of the elephant. So, how do they look in general? Have they got a massive body? What's their weight like? Do they just look massive? Like most old men, their skulls tend to be overdeveloped for the size of their bodies, and that's definitely true with elephants that are over 40, from 45 years old or so. Elephants' heads and tusks seem to just accelerate in growth, and so that would be the first marker: is how big are they? How big are their skulls in relation to their bodies? How massive are their tusks in relation to their heads and to the shape of their bodies? How big do they look? Are they thick in their waist and across their shoulders? Um, Elephants tend to be massive when body wise, when they're a little bit younger than 45. They lose condition from about 45 and get a bit skinnier. Um, and so coming down from 45, which is these huge skulled, relatively skinny, relatively big tusked elephant bulls, looking like they could, do with a good meal, to these robust younger bulls, who have these really thick, muscular bodies. That bird in the center of the screen is an emerald spotted wood dove. That is one of my absolute favorites, and there's a great view for those birders out there. They don't really sit still for long at all. They get their emerald spots name from those two iridescent green panels on their wing, just where their tail meets their body, and is generally associated with woodland and has a very nostalgic call. They Have a look on your web browser and see if you can find emerald spotted dove call. And they've got a very mournful, melancholy call, which is synonymous with warm days in woodlands, and absolutely one of my favorites. I hear that dove call and I'm immediately drawn back to my first days in the bush, where that call saturated the air around me at the middle of the day. And so, yeah, really great. Okay, so back to the chat on the elephants and about estimating their age. Um, so we've gone from elephants 45 to 55, which is the maximum age of elephants in this particular area, down to elephants sort of between 35 and 45. Anything younger than that, you're looking at bull elephant that are, generally speaking, associated with very old bulls. So, anything younger than 25 to 35 years old or thereabouts, are going to be small tusked, small bodied, solitary bulls that join up with bachelor herds of older bulls and similarly aged youngsters, um, in informal bachelor herds, which are, last anything from a couple of hours to a couple of days, perhaps a couple of months. Then we've got elephant bulls sort of between 18 and 25. Again, maybe associated with a herd. They might be associated with a bachelor herd. You might find them on their own, um, close to, again, that's a relative term. Um, Other herds of elephant looking for companionship. But these bulls just look young. They're smaller than other male elephant. They're often quite submissive. They're not very confident, but they're not with their natal herd. Then from about 18 downwards, all the way to newborn, you've got elephant that are with their natal herds. And so you've got elephant bulls that are with and associated to mommy and aunties and sisters and brothers and cousins. And they will almost always be in herds with one another. So, Trisha, I hope that helped to give you an idea of, the scale down from 55 all the way down to newborn, how we estimate age, um, or how I do at least anyway. So we've just got a message from one of our Zoomies, and it's a great message that I'd love to share with you. So Kenya is obviously, being in Africa is a region that does have water scarcity from time to time, and the lodge, Old Donyo, part of Great Plains Conservations, um, uses recycled water from the lodge and water that's harvested from rain capture to fill up the pan. So it's not just pumped indiscriminately from groundwater sources, which of course affect natural habitats, um, sometimes quite indirectly. But this water is pumped in here as part of the recycling process of the water that's used in the camp close by, and is augmented with water that's captured by rain. And being on the equator, they do have a lot of rain from time to time. They've got 2 wet seasons, and then those those times replenish water stocks, and then they will use it to augment the pan. So, you know, it does deserve a special mention there. So I just want to say thank you to Azumi for informing me on that. I wasn't actually aware of that. And it's great that we can share that with you, because it's important to know the sustainability profile of initiatives, and is becoming more of a trend as time goes by. Gosh, it's a female eland. She just looks so pregnant. So now we've had a herd of fringe-eared oryx come in. These are also endemic to this area, just like the Patterson's eland, although the Patterson's eland is a little bit more widespread than these fringe-eared oryx. They occur in a much smaller area. We see a lot of them here. Again, it would seem that there are a lot of them, but there aren't actually in the world. And we get treated to these spectacles often, luckily so.
Are you Wild Earth's biggest fan? Well, we have a brand new competition for you. Join our naturalists on Safari Live and listen out for weekly questions. To enter the competition, head over to our Instagram, search hashtag WildEarth Fan of the Month and comment your answer under the post. The monthly winner will be determined by the total quickest and most correct answers. We announce our winner at the end of every month. Tune in to Safari Live daily.
Again, what is quite interesting about this dynamic of elephant bull around this particular pan today is that short-tusked elephant, he's been dominating that freshwater pocket for quite some time, but also standing in the water, which is another subtle message for me. And apart from the bull that's been standing at the other inlet pipe on the right-hand side, he's sort of taking over the pan. Eland are coming in every now and again. The oryx are sort of grouping up, waiting their turn. To me, he's being a bit of a pan hog. There comes a big giraffe out of the left-hand side. Also just arrive on the scene like, hey, how are you? Let's see if it comes in and just has a drink, or whether it's going to stand on the fringes and just sort of hang about and wait for these ellies to move on. Love the way this elephant's resting his trunk on his tusk. If he's resting it so much as holding it. And when they're resting it, they tend to drape their trunk over their tusk. We haven't seen that single tusked bull come. He came back to the water's edge. I don't remember him drinking. So he's either still in the local area here somewhere or he's moved off to another water source. All right, but the magic of the Live at the Waterhole show is the fact that we have these cameras all over Africa, and or southern Africa, Namibia, and Kenya, and with the flick of a switch, we can go and have a look at other scenes in other areas and chat about their community and mix of animals. So, why don't we head across the continent west and go and have a look at our Okakoya camera and see what we've got around that pan. So south a couple of countries and west a couple of countries. That's the brilliance of this whole thing. And we're in a completely and totally different area. We're in Namibia now. This is Etosha National Park and at a pan called Okakweyo. And Okakweyo is the name of a rest camp that this pan is associated with. You might get a few noises and things associated with the camp behind us. But what is interesting is that we have its own mix of animals here, and we've got three different species in the picture here. We've got the springbuck in the foreground. Back left, we have greater kudu, and then we've got plain zebra in the center at the top on the other side. The This particular area is close to a massive salt pan. You can actually see it from space. 100 odd kilometers long by 80 odd kilometers wide. It's an enormous expanse of white salt pan. It lies a couple of kilometers off to the right, and this pan and camp are are built on a plain of calcrete. There's these white rocks that you see. Oh gosh, yeah. Those white rocks that you see are calcrete, and were deposited in the bottom of a shallow sea many, many millions of years ago, over 100 million years ago, in fact. And now form part of this very, very dry landscape. Giving everything this sort of white hue. Springbuck in the foreground. South Africa's national animal. Another youngster coming across the screen in the front. A dark patch on its flank, being there to help absorb sunlight on cold winter's mornings. They will stand perpendicular to the sun rising and setting, and they will use the black stripe to absorb heat and warm themselves up. And then when the desert gets really hot, they stand with their butt towards the sun. You can see that white blaze on their rump. Very effective at reflecting sunlight, incoming solar radiation. So instead of standing perpendicular to the sun, they stand face on or butt on, and they use that very white blaze to reflect the sun off of their bodies, and it cools them down. So deserts are obviously synonymous with massive temperature fluctuations between day and night. Namibia's Etosha being no different, and also between winter and summer. And these animals have evolved that coat pattern to help them with that. completely different to the evolution of the stripes on the zebra that you see there in the background. Those stripes have evolved in an effort to reduce biting flies. So, specifically, tsetse fly are, I'm looking for the word, are repelled by that very starkly contrasting stripy pattern, and therefore the diseases that they transmit to animals are also reduced in the zebra. So, very different use of stripes and contrasting colors between the springbuck and the zebra. What has been lovely to see is that acacia on the or Vachellia thorny tree on the left hand side. Not quite sure what species that is. It's probably a camel thorn, which is one of my favorite trees in this particular area. And it had some flowers a little bit earlier. It still looks like it's got a slight blush of yellowish flowers on it, and then it's starting to green up. So, testimony to the fact that spring day has come and gone on the 1st of September, and we are racing through these trees getting themselves up and running for the oncoming summer, and of course developing their fruit and seeds and getting those dropped as quickly as they can so that the biology in the soil can turn the soil over, swallow the seeds up, and keep them safe and secure for germination in the next season. There seems to be a slight sort of reddish hue to the sky there today. Although there doesn't look like much wind around at all, I would imagine that at a point in the last 12 or 24 hours, there has been actually a bit of wind and it's kicked up that reddish dust that you see from somewhere and thrown it into the atmosphere, giving us this hazy appearance. And we did predict the fact that the sky was going to get more and more hazy, grey, as the season progresses and we head toward those summertime build-up of cumulus clouds. It's being a desert, it doesn't get that much rain, but when it does rain, it's spectacular. It's a great view of the springbuck. Both male and female have horns. The male's horns are more spectacular, longer, thicker, and more robust. You can see every now and again, for those of you with some sharp eyes, there is a type of swallow or swift that is just lightly touching the surface of the water, collecting a mouthful at a time. They build their nests from mud and they collect water in an effort to try and help them form these little mud balls, which they then glue to each other and form these baskets. Nests, obviously, with birds being hot property, and if you can build your own nest, all the better. It's an expensive, from a metabolism point of view, it's obviously quite an expensive task. Lots of energy out. You don't have to compete with any others. Pied crow pair, usually quite noisy. You hear them in the background of this camera quite often. Bold springbuck just marching into the water. See how deep it goes before it decides to stop. Looks like one of those ones is just going to go for a swim. Gosh, it is just absolutely incredible to see how deep these animals go so quickly. You know, we remark on it often, but it really is a unique thing to see animals wade into the water like this. Generally speaking, African mammals are terrified of water, and it's because of the presence of crocodiles. Surface water in Etosha is obviously a rarity, and this is another one of those pumped pans or artificial water points, mainly because even though Etosha is enormous, it still is. It has its limits, and animals can't leave freely. Well, they can, I suppose, but they don't. And these animals have never learned how to fear crocodiles because there's no surface water that, naturally occurring surface water that stays around long enough for populations of crocodile to be sustained in this area, apart from the Kunene River, which is a little bit further north of there, on the borders between Namibia and Angola, and one of my favorite rivers in the southern African region. So we've had a few of you writing in this morning, which I'm very thankful for, and obviously, please continue to do so. There seems to be some feedback on the word okakweo, and it is a bizarre word because it doesn't, it rolls easily off the tongue, but it is actually quite a difficult thing to spell, as you can see there on the top left. It is Okaukuejo. And Bundibasha says that it means a woman who bears a child every year. And I've also researched and found that out. But it also means elephant bathing. So there seems to be some conflicting information there. But nevertheless, Okakwea was a post, as far as I gather. And people used to come and stay here. It's also the closest camp in Etosha to Windhoek, which is the capital city of Namibia, and where they've got an international airport that's easily accessible. So a lot of international visitors come out to Okakweo, and this particular pan is well known as being one of the most busy pans from an animal activity point of view in the park at times. And I know from personal experience, having sat around this pan for many, many hours, both day and night, that there is a never-ending procession of animals here. And I've been here in the wet, and I've been here in the dry, summer and winter, and it is just a spectacular pan. My favorite camp of all of them is Elali, but that's for personal preferences. we were chatting about elephant bulls a little bit earlier and about how elephant bulls between 35 and 45 just have these really healthy bodies, these prime bodies. And this giraffe is no less spectacular. He is a prime bull giraffe, so not past prime, not adolescent, not immature. He is in the absolute top of his physical condition, and a rather dark giraffe at that. So you do get brunette and blonde giraffe, and they do get slightly darker with age, but suffice it to say that you do get giraffe that are born dark and giraffe that are born light, and he was obviously born dark. Being a brunette man myself, I quite enjoy the darker coloured giraffe. He is in just such good condition. Look at those shoulders that he's got on him. Big, muscular. He's got a thorn stuck in his back left foot though. See what he manages to do with that. Being so tall, he can't actually use his mouth to dislodge that stick. As you've just seen, this giraffe seems to have a thorn branch stuck in his back left hoof. Being as tall as what they are, they can't actually use their mouth to dislodge it. He seems to be favouring his right hoof. I don't know, am I just wanting to see that? Do you notice the same thing? And you'll need to dislodge that by abrasion, probably, and rubbing it on something. Nonetheless, though, he is having a fantastic drink at this water. It's not as hot yet today as it was yesterday. Yesterday we were in the low hundreds. Today we're in sort of mid 90s, but it's still warm and it's still dry and it's still the dry season. And food is still quite scarce for these guys, so it's a hard time of year. He must have heard the oxpeckers. He's definitely favouring his back right. Now, generally speaking, humans won't do anything to help this giraffe, even though he is in such great condition. There needs to be a natural attrition and way of things out here. Mother Nature knows best. And injuries do happen, naturally occurring injuries. And so, unless the animal is critically endangered from a species point of view, or unless a direct human intervention has caused the injury, nothing much will be done to help this poor guy, and he's just going to have to sort himself out. You can see there, sort of on his back left, he's got a stick stuck to his hoof, most probably a thorn branch of some sort, and it's stuck either between his hooves or impaled into it. And I did think that he was favouring his hoof. You can see that he's definitely not putting all his weight on it. He'll most probably sort it out. It's not a critically bad thing that he just needs to. So those are the front hooves. The back hoof is where the stick is stuck. It's not that one. That just seems to be a stick that's coincidentally in the picture. It's that back left hoof, the one that's on the far right of the screen. There seems to be a stick stuck in there, and it's causing him some mild irritation. He's not in bad condition at all, and so this is like having a splinter in your foot. It's not really doing anything except irritating him. But because giraffe are so tall and so short, he won't be able to use his mouth to take out that stick like your cat or your dog would. Or he has no hands, obviously, so being long and supple like a dog or a cat allows you to bend down, pick up your mouth, use your mouth and your lips to dislodge anything stuck in your feet. He's not, he can't do that. And so there you are seeing a very clear look at one of the disadvantages of being the world's tallest mammal. You can see there's not a lot of swelling there. It doesn't seem to be. He doesn't seem to be in any massive discomfort. There's no infection that you can really see. In other words, the skin isn't sloughing off and the hair isn't falling out. I mean, I'm no vet, to be honest. It also doesn't look like it's a thorn branch. So I think that the stick is just sort of stuck between his cloven hooves and will eventually fall out. So such a good observation and really well done to Zumi operating the camera. Well done. It's not an easy thing manipulating these cameras, and then obviously getting these animals to luckily stand still long enough for us to have a look at things like this. There's also, so you can see, no thorns. It's just a branch that's been awkwardly stuck in between his hooves. It's causing him some irritation, which means that he's not standing or putting his full weight on it. What he needs to do is go and stand in a bush and flail about and hook the stick out. William, yeah, you're right, William. It does look a little bit painful. Let's see when he walks off. Gosh, he definitely isn't putting weight on it either. Hmm. We've got a red-billed oxpecker. Like I said, I think we're focusing on the fact that he's got a mild discomfort. He's definitely a bull that is in great tip-top condition. I don't think this is anything to be too freaked out about. For those of you who are being affected by this, it really isn't a big thing. He will dislodge that stick in no time at all. It's creating some irritation, and he'll be aware of it, even if it's just at a subconscious level right now. He is favoring his one foot over his other, so he's putting a lot of weight there. Doesn't look like a thorn stick. In other words, there's no impaling. Just looks like an oddly shaped stick that's just keyed into the gap between his hooves. There's no obvious swelling. The skin isn't sloughing off. He hasn't lost massive condition. And so it is just one of those things. Africa is a harsh place. But yeah, let's go and have a look at how he's doing. Have a look at the oxpecker there on his back, combing through the hair. The oxpeckers, these red-billed oxpeckers, their primary job is to keep the fur clean and to keep wounds clean, and often to what would seem the detriment of the animal, but in fact, it does actually do the animal really good. So they eat all the dead and decaying flesh around a wound, and again, with giraffes being so tall and so short, they can't really maintain wounds like they need to. Like your dog or your cat would lick at a wound, keeping it clean and getting rid of dead tissue. Solomon, you are 100% right in saying what a beauty. He is an absolute specimen of a male giraffe or a bull giraffe in such great condition. You'll notice that in profile with the skull, the obvious knobs and calcification that you find on bull giraffe head is there, but definitely not the same. They don't have the same, let's say, they're not as profound as the Maasai giraffe that we see up at Albonio. The calcification on the common giraffe tends to be there, but not as hectic. Here we've got our Zoomy busy focusing in on these oxpeckers that are busy on working on the fur of the giraffe. And you'll notice that the red beak without the yellow spot at the base of the beak means that this particular species of oxpecker is the red-billed oxpecker. And there you can see the red-billed oxpecker just combing through the mane of the giraffe. It'll come back into focus now. It's just the camera battling with the contrast. And as wonderful as these cameras are, and technology is, we do have some limitations, but at least we can see this particular bird doing its thing. Such a great view. There you go. Combing through the hair, and what that bird will be doing is combing off any mites and parasites, dead skin cells, and keeping the giraffe in tip-top condition. It's a symbiotic relationship called mutualism, where both species benefit. Now we're going to look at this bull giraffe. He's standing very close to our African lady camp. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park in South Africa, one of the largest and last truly epic wilderness areas left in the world. And we focused on the feet of these giraffe. To give an idea of some size and context, I'm a 6'1" human being, and I will be able to walk straight underneath the belly of that giraffe without even brushing the top of my bald head. So, I'll give you an example of an idea of how big these giraffes actually are. Standing 15 feet, 16 feet tall at the top of their head. Up, up, up we go. and also allows us an opportunity to discuss how important it is for trees, as you can see there on the right hand side, to get as big as they can, as quick as they can, to avoid being munched on. Elephant, of course, have figured out that if they ring bark the tree, as you can see, this particular tree has been debarked around its base. And not only can the elephant extract the nutrients and water from the cambium layer just below the woody bark, which they do, but it also then kills the tree, so it effectively cuts off the vascular system between the roots and the leaves. The tree will then die slowly and will eventually fall over, and in the process creating homes for any number of other animals and decomposers. So it's also just a part of the way things work out here. At what would seem apparently sad, and the demise of the tree is in fact very necessary for the way things work out here. Here we go, we sort of zooming in on the back left hand side now, and this giraffe has got a stick stuck between its cloven hooves, and it's creating some irritation and pain. This giraffe is favouring his right leg. It's such a great view of it. Here you can see the stick, the culprit, and that it's stuck there between the hooves. I think it's just creating some pressure, which is creating irritation. You probably find some swelling there. It's not a thorn stick. Looks to be a piece of raisin bush of some sort. So a fairly hardy piece of stick. You can see the giraffe is he's been trying to rub it there. That stick is broken off. You can see there it's cracked down the middle. So this giraffe has either been rubbing it in an effort to try and dislodge the stick, or oh, that's dinner last night coming out, raining down. You can see him walk off over there. So he's still got function of his legs. I don't. It's sore, obviously. You can see how stiff he's keeping it. And he's got a slight limp. So yeah, it's not 100% good, but it also isn't stopping this giraffe from doing what he's doing. I think what will happen eventually is that stick will come out somehow, and he'll carry on with his day. It's going to be a proper relief, I think, once that stick does come out there. Goodness. Great view of this guy making his way down the game path. And as sad as it is to see, and I feel the same pity that you do for this animal. It's in obviously discomfort, and it's not nice to see. Our natural reaction is to be like, "Come on, man, let's do something and let's help this giraffe." But putting it into context, it being slightly less fit than it would otherwise normally be means that it's an easier target, and who knows what might be dependent on this easier target for their survival. So, let's just say there's a lioness who's injured or has cubs or has lost her pride, and she gets to catch this giraffe because he's in less than perfect shape, and because of that, her cubs survive, and one of those cubs carries a winning gene, which in a couple of years, aid in the survival of lions as a species. I'm obviously overgeneralizing, but that's how it was explained to me, and how I'm now passing that knowledge on to you. And it just made a clear point for me that we always want to just sort of intervene and help, but it doesn't always mean that we're doing the right thing. So 50, it's a fantastic sighting. You're 100% right, and it's because it's unusual. So it's not every day that we see prime bull giraffe like that with something wrong with them. Usually prime bull giraffe are exactly that. They're prime and there's nothing wrong with them. But yeah, seeing one with a stick stuck between his hooves, and you're thinking, gosh, cloven hoof sticks, giraffe, definitely one of those things that we don't see very often. So I, for one, wish that male giraffe the best of luck. I'm going to put my hands together and clap for him, and I'm going to hold thumbs for him that he makes a full recovery, and I have no doubt that he will. And it also gives us time now to leave this particular pan and go and have a look at something else, at another one of our pans. And so off we go. So here we've come south a couple of 100 kilometers, still in the Greater Kruger National Park, and we're at Africam's and Coral Pan. We're close to June actually, and we're with a herd of elephants that are standing around the water. Just next to it, the water's off on the right hand side. There's Coral Camp in the background. There's pans at a discreet enough distance away from the camp that guests in camp are not going to bother these animals at all, and also that we don't spy on them with our camera while we're looking at animals, at least anyway. So this is a breeding herd of elephant, and it's because there are females with babies, so that's why it's a breeding herd. And you can see that we've got a couple of adult cows here with their babies. And noticeably, the ones on the left are standing around a square hole in the ground. That's the well, and the freshest water is there. Looks like these lilies have been around for some time. You can actually see that their feet are wet, so they've gone into the water already. And some of them have wet flanks, and behind their ears is wet. So they've come in, they've slaked their thirst, they've sprayed the water up onto their flanks and behind their ears to aid in cooling them down. And now what they're doing is they're just augmenting that initial water drinking with the freshest water that they can, and that is the water that's coming out of the well. And of course, the biggest elephants get the choice water. Everyone else must just wait their turn. Pretty cool. I quite like this. Nice scene. Yesterday we also had herds of elephant around this pan. Lots of ellies in this part of the world, and the Kruger National Park has got a very healthy population of elephant. And in particular, this area sees an influx of elephant. Oh, there's one standing in the mud. He's giving himself a mud bath. And what we often see elephant do is create mud puddles by agitating the substrate, and then either rolling. Youngsters enjoy swimming a lot more, it seems, than adults do, and either rolling around in it or picking up the mud with the tip of their trunk and then flinging it down their flanks, bodies, onto their bellies and onto their heads. And so let's see what these guys are going to do with their sniffers. Trunks, obviously. So I was just saying that this particular area of the Greater Kruger National Park sees a seasonal variation in elephants. In the dry season, we see an increase of elephants substantially, threefold almost, of elephant. And it's because this area of the Kruger National Park is predominantly woody. It doesn't look like that on this open plain, but the camp was built on this open plain for game viewing reasons, and the bush around this plain will be quite thick and woody. An elephant, their diets change from winter to summer. In winter, which is this time of the year, they're eating mainly leaves, sticks, barks, and roots. And in summertime, they eat mainly grass. And the elephant will come into this part of the park, migrate seasonally, to eat the woody species of plants and trees. And then in summertime, so from December, January, February, March, April, they would be a lot further east of where we are now on grassy plains around a camp called Satara, and then also into the Mpani belt, which is a forest thicket which lies north of this, with very dark, lush green leaves, very thickly or densely wooded area. And so they alternate between the Mopani belt and the grass and fatten up over summer.
Do you want to contribute towards leaving a legacy for future generations? Raise Your Hand for Rhino strives to keep wild animals wild, with a focus on anti-poaching, conservation projects, habitat management, and veterinary services. Raise Your Hand for Rhino needs your help. Go to the WildEarth website and donate to the cause. Raise Your Hand for Rhino, leaving a legacy for future generations. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Hoof, a keratinous hoof. The elephant's feet are very similar to ours in that it's just a soft pad of skin, a fatty deposit at the end of their toes, and it's formed a pad. They do have calluses on the bottom of their feet, so if you have to feel an elephant foot, it feels calloused and hard, but it's just hard skin. It's not bone. It's not keratin. It's just what's happening there, man? And Big Ellie came and muscled his way in there and then pushed the baby toward the mud, and then there was a bit of a panic. They needed to just get out. They weren't invited to play in the water. Auntie there keeping the mud safe, not allowing the babies in. Come on, man. Get out of the way. Let them have a swim. We want to see them over a bit of a mud. Come on. They just want to bath. Look. One is almost upside down trying to get his head into the mud. But she's having none of it. Being back in the mud. a fairly common herd size for this area. You're looking at anywhere from 6 to 12 elephant, and in a healthy herd, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like 12. And so definitely, mom is coming up out of the mud, still producing a lot of milk. You can see the mammary glands are super full between her front legs. And she's now gotten out of the way. So let's see if these babies either get, no, mom's left, and so now what do? Do I follow mom? Or do I stick around and have my mud bath and then I'll get all insecure because now mom's left? I don't, come on. There's auntie there saying, no, get away from my water. Pushing him back into the mud. Oh, there we go. There goes the little one. I take that as a cue. Go for your bath. Get in the water. Lie down. Have a mud bath. You'll feel better for it. Come on. There you go. You can do it. Just lie down. Let's see what this is doing. Already learned from their moms to get the cleanest water at the top of the water on the surface. Tap away the sludge. Suck up just the top of the water. And so then auntie is dominating the well. They can't get their face in there. They're going to do it the second best. And it looks like they're going to go for a swim, which is a pity. Yeah, go back to mom. Come on, lie down. You can do it. You feel so much better. Right, so for those of you who don't know, this is an interactive show. You are welcome to send through your comments and your questions, and it would be great to hear from you. My name is Steph Vintable. I'm a naturalist and have been one for my entire adult life. And together we can discover new things, and I can help you understand what you're looking at if I don't explain it properly, and clear up any confusion or misunderstandings, and also share insights and thoughts that you have as well. And so if you don't know how to ask me a question, you're welcome just to register on the WildEarth website, and you'll be able to send through your questions, and we'll get through as many of them as we can in the time that we have. You've got cool. It is also a live show, so we are 2 minutes past 11, and this is what is happening at this time right now. With just a couple of seconds delay, 2 or 3 seconds delay anywhere, we have a screen or thereabouts. And so completely unscripted. I don't know what's happening any more than you do. We don't edit any of this stuff. And so from time to time we get the wind shaking the camera and gremlins coming in, and we don't know what's going to happen. So be surprised as much as what you are. Yeah, often our predictions as to what's going to happen are wrong. I expected these elephants to have a mud bath. It's really hot here today. It's 30 degrees up to 35 degrees, which is sort of the mid 90s. And being close to lunchtime, the temperature is really blazing out here. And so I expected these at least to have a swim in this mud, but they're not mud bathing, and they're definitely not spraying themselves with mud either. They're just sort of hanging about the well, drinking some water. And babies are being jostled here and there by aunties and moms. Yep, he's now being moved off. We've had enough. My turn. Let's see if this big one pushes off this other one as well. And he shoves away the big elephants and then uses her trunk to push away the smaller one. Sort of gently just saying, no, this is mine, not yours. There is a hierarchy amongst elephants. We've been chatting about that for most of the morning. Definitely more pronounced in the bulls, but no less so in herds of elephant, where the matriarch, the biggest, oldest elephant, will have the choicest selection of clean water and food. But she does that because she provides the wisdom for the herd, where to go, when what happens, or what time of the year. And all the other elephants learn from that. No rush amongst these guys. It's actually, we're talking about these flowering trees, and how they get their flowers out now first up in the season. It hasn't even rained yet. They're using energy stored up last year to push out these very smelly flowers, gorgeous looking sprays of flowers, in an effort to get insects to pollinate them now, so that they can produce their fruit and then their seeds in enough time for the seeds to be taken below ground and kept safe before everything slows down to winter again. Little baby trunk curled over his head, using his mouth to nurse. Mom standing patiently by while he does so, augmenting the water that he's had. Hey, come to get your butt up my face and try and have lunch. You know, when you speak about trees doing that in a rush up to winter, it gives you this feeling of rushing and haste. And then trees go dormant for winter and they just have a bit of a sleep. And you look at elephants just enjoying each other's company around a water point like this. You can't help but get the sense of peace and lack of time. You know, where's the rush? I'll go anywhere. We're having some fun around the water. Kind of smashed some trees just now. A friend of mine once coined the phrase, it's best to be a human being, not a human doing. And I don't know, since I heard it from him many, many years ago, it must be 10 or 15 years ago now, I've never stopped thinking about that. And that our endeavor to be human doings undoes our human being nature. And that, in my experience from that day to this, I've always taken the most pleasure from being a human being another human doing. And I think these elephants will just be a lot more than they do. Hazy B, you've now stated this a fact here. You say that there are no cuter babies than baby elephant. You, Hazy B. I hear you, but lion cubs can be pretty cute. Panda babies can be pretty cute. Baby polar bears can be pretty cute. Baby baboons, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, all of them can be pretty cute. But I hear you. You've obviously got a liking for elephant, and it's in the eye of the beholder. So you're not wrong. They are pretty cute. Awkward, but pretty cute.
Do you want to know what the WildEarth team has been busy with lately? Join us on September 24th for a company update town hall. We will update our explorers on the growth and change that we have been experiencing and what more is to come. Watch it live on your nearest device. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Such a great privilege to be with these animals and not be interrupting their natural behavior. So, to a degree, human activity has an impact on animals. And if I were there on foot or in a vehicle, I'd need to adjust how close I was to the elephant in order not to change their behavior. But the epic thing about these webcams is that we can be very, very close to these animals, and we can zoom in, and we have zero impact on their behavior. They'd be doing this whether we were here or not. And that to me is a total privilege to be able to witness what these animals are doing with their lives, the way that they're doing it without impacting them whatsoever is really a proper privilege. You can see we've got a couple of different behaviors going on. We've got this elephant cow who's busy messing the water just because I think she's big and just dominating this other smaller one. And then we've got these little ellies on the side now lying down and having a bit of a tussle with each other. Look at that. Pretty cool. Just got the ellie lying down like a dog or a cat. Obviously having a bit of a wrestle with the brother or a cousin. So two very different behaviors going on here. I don't know why this female is wasting the water like she is. I think she's just, like I said, I think she's just dominating this other elephant here. She's like, I'm going to have all this water, even if I waste it. You can't have any, and it's because I'm bigger and better than you. We've got these youngsters here who are busy having a tussle in the mud. I wonder what that female is going to be doing in the mud there now. I've really been hoping that one of them goes for a swim. Maybe we're lucky and we can see that now. Right. I'm going to go for a swim, little guy. Right. Not today. They'll probably only come down to the water once today, so this will be the time that these elephants are spending at this water, drinking their fill, getting some mud on them, and they'll spend the rest of the day feeding. The babies obviously will still, the unweaned babies will still have their diet supplemented by mommy's milk. And we were watching one of the babies nursing a little bit earlier briefly. But you're looking at around about 20 hours a day, plus minus, of feeding this time of the year to get enough food from the dry bush to keep them healthy. And so we won't have more time today to come and drink. So the sort of half an hour, 40 minutes that we've spent with them today has been a privilege because we won't come back to the water today. And tomorrow there might be dozens of kilometers away and frequent another water source or a river. We've got such epic cameras on different rivers. But the beauty of the show is that we've got cameras all over the place, as I was mentioning. And while these guys carry on with their lunch, we're going to go and have a look at Kempfer's Dam and see what's going on over there. So here we have Kempfer's Dam, which of course is a bit different to Kruger National Park in that this is a conservation area of some significance, just like the park basically, but for different reasons. This particular pan is one of 7 breeding sites for the lesser flamingo and the only breeding site for the lesser flamingo in South Africa. The flamingo being that pinkish white bird that you see in the middle of the screen. Darker birds being a mixture of coots and moorhens. We've come about, let's see how far away we are from where. So, true to form, I was underestimating the distance. I reckon we came about 700 or 800 kilometers west of where we were, but in fact, we're closer to 1,000 kilometers west of where we were. Just now at Naledi. So now we're at Campus Dam, which is 1,000 kilometers west, and sort of central in the country, up on the Highveld or Highland Plateau. This body of water is actually quite big. It's 500 hectares big, and is one of these sort of ephemeral, what was naturally an ephemeral pan that filled up seasonally, and on wet years the water lasted through the winter, and drier years it didn't. Nevertheless, nowadays it is more permanent, and it's mainly due to the increase in the size of the town close by, which is a town called Kimberley, of great historical significance to South Africa in recent times. And the increase of the town has led to an increase of storm water drainage, and this particular pan has also become part of the water treatment plant for the town, and so it is filled up with overflow from that, and is now permanent. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the significance, the conservation significance of that is that these flamingo now have a permanent body of water to get their food from, which is made up of bacteria and algae. They filter feeders, very similar to some of the largest whales on Earth, in fact. And they're not exactly the same food. And at times there are tens of thousands of these birds, a significant portion of the world population. There's not that many of them. They're globally threatened as a species. And this is one of those areas one of 7 breeding sites in the world for this lesser flamingo. So that's the reason why African have a camera here, is to showcase this conservation success, and the dam itself is conserved for future generations, hopefully indefinitely. Great view there. A portion of these birds busy feeding. They're obviously also having lunch, just like this elephant were. And what they'd be doing is, when it's shallow enough, they just bend their head down and open up and shut their beak into the substrate at the bottom, filtering out the food that they want. And when it gets slightly deeper, they upend themselves and then have to kick to stay down. Very similar to those coots that you're seeing, blackbirds with a white head. Solomon, you just mentioned that you don't think that there's a better sound than water. Oh, Solomon, I hear you. I'm possibly speaking too much. I apologize for that. Um, but I also agree with you in that the sound of running water, or just water in general, just lapping against the shore, is It's very soothing. So I'll reduce my chatting while we're at Camping Dam and let you enjoy the sound of the water. We'll pick up commentary again when something happens.
Attention all Wild Earth fans. World Rhino Day and the Cricket World Cup are right around the corner, and we have a surprise for you.
From the sublime to the ridiculous, everybody.
James Hendry will be joined on Live at the Waterhole by former England cricket captain and Sorai founder Kevin Peterson. Learn more about the work Sorai is doing to help Africa's unicorn thrive in the wild. Come along for the fun. Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
In fact, I owe you an apology. The male and the female both have the red dots on their forehead. And in fact, only the adolescents are the ones with the white faces. So I recently just said that this was a female because she lacked the two red knobs on the forehead. But we live to learn, and I now know that both male and female red knobbed coot have the two red knobs and the white face, and only the adolescents have only the white face. And so this is probably a adolescent bird approaching adulthood rather than an adult bird, which should have a more pronounced red, two red knobs. Eating some grass. Let's see. Picking at almost every single piece of flotsam that it's finding. Great job to the Zoomy controlling the camera. You really are on top form today, so well done. There you can see a variety of these birds doing their things. Alright, so now we can see that most of those birds that we're looking at there have a characteristic white face with the two red knobs at the base of their beak on their forehead, which makes them the red-knobbed coot. It seems today to be the most common bird around, along with the flamingos. There you can see an adult with the two red knobs on the forehead. Yes, these cameras are incredible with their zoom and their quality of image. Well done, Africam. Talking about how these birds sort of maintain their feathers, they spend a large portion of their day maintaining their feathers. So feathers are made up of filaments, and these filaments have hooks on. And so what the birds will do is make sure that the filaments are aligned parallel to one another and that the hooks are all engaged so that it forms a water resistant. It's a, no, it's a feather. Gosh, I thought that was a baby. That looks like a blackwing stilt, although its bill is very short. So that, before I say that that's a blackwing stilt, I'm going to have to do some research. Blackwing stilts have relatively longer beaks for sure. Now, this being a wetland, often we have birds from all different types coming through here. Also, that white bar coming into the wing is also not very characteristic of the blackwing stilt. So what I'm doing now is paging through my bird booking, like any good field guide would do, in order to quickly come up with an answer. It's most likely a blackwing stilt with a white feather out of place. But I would like to confirm that because we do have some very good birders amongst you out there, and what I don't want to do is embarrass myself. So I definitely think that it's a blackwing stilt. There's some lesser flamingos in the foreground. So that is my submission. We're looking at there. That one's definitely a blackwing stilt on the left hand side. So the one in the center picture is just got a white feather out of place. And so yeah, that's what we're looking at there. A relatively common bird around these water areas. And will hang around in small groups. There's another bird. You can see off on the right next to that little tree. These birds are so cool. Sajid, you'd like to know if the flamingos are here all year round? Yeah, they definitely are to some degree or another. So the they are locally nomadic and will fly usually at nighttime, anywhere from to the pan next door, a couple of kilometers, to up to 400 kilometers in an evening. And and so while there will be seasonal variations of the numbers of flamingos, you definitely will get flamingos here all the time. And it's a great place to see them, and helped because of the fact that this water source is now permanent. All these birds coming out of the water. Goodness me, there's a lot of birds in this wetland. It's obviously a very important spot for wetland birds, and is conserved as such. And what we're looking at is some wader. These birds on the fringes here tend to be colored the same, so that white bar across the wing, seeing there that quite heavily speckled flank would lead me to believe that that's a type of sandpiper. But let's just have a look at what if you can see the color of the legs. Are the legs yellow or are they dark? With the wood sandpiper or the green sandpiper. Tough to say. At least for me. There's definitely better birders out there, 100% for sure. So if any of you know or think you know what this is, please feel free to write in and educate us all. You are 100% welcome to give your opinion. If it is the wood sandpiper, it's just arrived back from its migratory paths. Really great to see. I love these puzzles, And, birding, like tracking, is one of those things that develops over time. Initially, we were super interested in all the big animals and what they're doing, giraffe and elephant and lion and buffalo. We often forget that there's an entire biodiversity chain that's linked to these conservation areas. And insects, tracking, birding, after 10 or 15, 20 years starts to overshadow everything. So I'm going to say that this is probably a wood sandpiper that's just arrived back from its migration. But yeah, one of many similarly shaped colored birds. We got a red in the foreground. from a black-winged stilt.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of sunset safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
It's an adult red-knobbed coot that you can see on the right-hand side, that black bird with the red face and the two bulbous knobs just where its beak joins its forehead. And some more sandpipers there in the background. All three different bird species eating different things. So the flamingos in the foreground are eating a mixture of algae and bacteria. The coots are eating grass with a few insect and seeds. The stilts, black-winged stilts, which are those black-winged birds, feeding on invertebrates and insects, and then the wood or the sandpiper is doing very much the same thing. So although you've got a whole bunch of birds in a very concentrated space, they're all feeding on different things, and so it can cohabit very easily. There's one thing about birds is that they very rarely sitting still unless they're sitting on eggs or like a heron, hunting. They're always busy doing something. The other day we were watching a whole flock of these flamingos just busy preening, maintaining feathers. And now we're watching a whole bunch of them just busy feeding with their heads under the water. There's a small debate as to how many seconds per minute do you think a flamingo actually breathes for? And of course, the inevitable extrapolation, how many minutes per hour are the birds breathing for? And it's quite an interesting sum, that. So I want to see when the bird comes up. This one in the center. This one. So when it comes up, let's have a look. 1,000, 2,000, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So 7 seconds, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 1,000. So up for 2, down for 7. That seems to be the average. Let's see, that stays the same. 2, 5. So there's that flamingo now, up for 2, down for 5. Before it was down for 7, up for 2. So that's at 1/3, 30% of the time. 30% of a minute is 20 seconds. 30% of an hour is 20 minutes. So they're basically breathing for 20 minutes an hour while they're feeding. So even if you take it, they're only breathing half the time. It's crazy. I think these ones in the foreground, these flamingos in the foreground, are probably even longer than that. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well. Anyway, it looks like they definitely breathe for holding their breath for significant portions of an hour when they're feeding. It's amazing, actually. Right, so I think we've had a great view of these birds around Campus Dam. And so why don't we go and check out one of our other cameras? I think we're going from here up to Kenya to go and have a look at Oldonia and see what's going on around that park. And yes, we are. We are gone from relatively small birds right up to the largest mammals on Earth from a terrestrial point of view, so land mammals. The African elephant. These boys are ginormous, and I see that we've got this guy with the one big tusk. He's come back into the scene again. Looks like the same group of bull elephant that have been here now way over an hour. And that seems to be pretty typical of these male elephant that come into this pan. They come and spend an extraordinary time around the water. That bull elephant there that's just made way for the small tusked bully. That small tusk guy seems to have dominated the show here for the last couple of hours, even pushing this one tusk bull out of contention. And then we've got that beautifully tusked bull in the background over there, having made way as well. So now this one tusked bull, he's going to just sully the water here. He's decided to hell with your bad attitude. Have some dung in your water. He'll probably go for a big wee as well. Just come out of the water, boy. You just stand in the water and make it disgusting for everyone else. I suppose, it all adds to the flavor. Might as well have some tea while we're at it. Talking about this particular thing and trying to find the positive note in it. Elephants' digestive systems are not that good. They are bulk feeders, and so a vast majority of the food that they eat gets chewed up into finer particles and then just goes straight through the elephant system just like that. And so you've got a lot of medicinal properties coming through intact from the plants that they eat. And of course, when they deliver their dung into a pan like this and it steeps in the water, you probably find that the nutrient content of the water does increase somewhat, from a micronutrient point of view. I'm obviously just trying to find the positive. But, knowing the value of plant medicine the way that I do, why wouldn't it be a positive thing up to a point? These elephants now, I spent a significant time around this water, and are now finished drinking and are now just spraying themselves wet in an effort to cool themselves down.
WildEarth is home to Africa's endangered unicorn. We aim to inspire the protection of our rhinos by connecting people to them.
I am here with a beautiful female rhino and her calf.
Join our naturalists as we track our favorite rhinos on safari.
Hello, big boy.
Watch it live and join the rush this Rhino Day with WildEarth.
Now this guy on the far left, he is finally having his turn at the pan, at the water, the fresher water. These other elephants have just bullied him out completely. Now for one of, I got a liking for him. For some reason his nature just appeals to me. Looks like this Ellie in the center is also going to have a poo in the water. Decided that it's not quite, this tea that he's trying to produce is not quite at the right consistency or concentration. Let's see if he moves out or if he's going to have a, gosh, you guys, making the water disgusting for the zebra. It is the bush though, so don't worry. The animals, while they would prefer cleaner water, are not going to be too negatively impacted by anything like this. The zebra are usually quite bold. They usually will, approach the pan, and then one will make a go at the water, and all of a sudden there'll be a rush. So let's see if the same holds true this time around. Let's see if the one little bit more bolder zebra, no, that one's a bit timid, and may now on the bum of the two zebra facing us, where their bum's facing us. The one on the right has got a nasty scar, fresh scar on her flank, on her butt, probably from a lion's claw. You can see it there. Not stopping her from walking normally at all. So, alright, so this zebra has come in. The next one will now come in as well, and the next one and the next one. They tend to do these things in herds. And actually, over time, you can get so many zebra coming in, they actually push these elephant around. Let's see if the same holds true this time. So, like one zebra's come in, now they all come in. Gosh, what a lovely picture. Zebra, that was quite feisty, you don't quite know. One gets a fright at his own shadow or at someone they don't like, and next thing they're thundering away all over the place and they get bitey with one another as their pecking order gets re-established and maintained. I was once in a swimming pool and an elephant, two elephants actually, two or three, I can't remember if it was two or three, it was definitely more than one, came up to the pool and stuck their trunk into the water while I was swimming. It was a friend and I, and we just stayed very still with basically our bodies under the water and our heads just, as high as we could out the water, and quite nervous actually because when you're below the level of an elephant's foot, they are enormous animals. I mean, you're looking at 5,000 or 6,000 kilograms, 3.5 meters tall at the shoulder. I mean, it's 2-3 times the size of a normal family car. They're massive things, and shared this most profoundly close encounter with these elephants. It looked like they were getting angry. We were relatively safe in the water as long as we didn't try and come out. And my friend stood up and gave the elephant a fright. And what he did was he just flicked his trunk at my friend and blasted him with a trunk full of water. which had a whole bunch of stones in it. He got stones stuck in his teeth and stones stuck in his eyes. It really did. It was an amazing reaction from this elephant. They didn't move anywhere. They finished their drinking and then left the swimming pool emptier than it was, and we were then able to get out and move off. We experienced this very surreal, once in a lifetime sort of thing. Okay, so let's look at the zebra on the left hand side. You can see that those claw marks clearly there. So of the herd of zebra, in the center there's a zebra with some claw marks, some quite vicious claw marks on their butt. That is very typical of a lion having hooked their claws into the rump of the zebra, and the zebra having fought its way clear either by kicking the lion or by just tearing loose. And what often happens is because the lion's claws are so viciously hooked, it tears out a chunk and then misaligns the stripes, which is what we can see there. But you can see there's nothing, unlike the giraffe that we looked at just now, that's foot was sore from a stick. Having lion sink its claws into the zebra's butt's done nothing for its mobility. And she will heal up pretty quick and have an interesting story to tell nonetheless. You sometimes see crocodiles biting. Usually when crocodiles have bitten into a zebra, they usually bite at the flanks and tails and legs. So you see different wounds. Not really a bite mark like you're seeing there. Well, that's not a bite mark, sorry, that's a claw mark. Here we're going in for a closer look. You can just see she's not quite finished yet. There she goes back in. It's the one that's just entered the water now. Looks like the zebra will get out of the way. Talking about being bedazzled. Quite no, there she is. You can see the. Oh, it looks so sore. Not this one in the center, of course, the one on the far left. There you can see the chunk of meat that's been ripped out of her butt. Luckily, she's got her tail that can keep the flies away. Let's see. These Ellies now decided to chase the zebra away. The hustle and the bustle having been a little bit too much to bear. Is this the one with the sore butt coming back? No, she's had her drink and she's moved on. Maybe that's her. Yep, that's her. So she ran away, having slaked her thirst. Let's see if she comes back. It's tough. Lions, we all think that lions are these incredible hunters, and they really are. I mean, to catch a zebra with your fingernails and your teeth is no mean feat. But they're not as successful as one might think. The helicopter in the background. Atypical scene. But lions are not really that successful in terms of overall success. Some reports have it that lions are only 20%. So only 20% of the hunts that lions do end up being successfully providing food for themselves or for the rest of their pride. So by far and wide, you have these close calls that you see now. 80% of the hunts are close calls, and so you do see a lot of zebra with claw marks and with scars, and good for them. So, Stephen, you've reached out to us and you've asked a question. Could I elaborate a little bit more on a zebra's digestive system? And absolutely, Stephen. So, the zebra and the elephant share a similar digestive system in that they are both considered bulk grazers and have a hindgut fermentation system. So they're not ruminants. They can deal with large volumes of relatively low quality grass, and they don't chew the cud. So they eat the grass, it just goes through the teeth and mastication process once, and they chew it fine, not as fine as a ruminant would. Ah, there we go. We'll come back to your answer now, Stephen. So that's giving us a great view of that claw slash mark. Ooh, that zebra was lucky. There was a close call. So yeah, Stephen. So it's a completely different digestive system. It happens faster. The grass moves from mouth to out much quicker than what it would in a ruminating digestive system, which means that it's less efficient. But it is more capable at dealing with lower quality grasses. And so you find that zebra are really adaptable, provided that there's the volume of food available to feed them. They generally can survive in areas with lower quality grasses, and so zebra do quite well. Are zebra better suited to this environment than say a wildebeest is, which has a ruminating digestive system? Look, I don't know. There's not as many zebra as there are wildebeest. I think that maybe answers your question or answers that question. But it is quite effective at allowing zebra to be a little bit more resilient to drought. And so I suppose when times are good and grass is healthy, then ruminants would have the upper hand. But when times are tough and grass populations, climax grass species of populations decrease and are taken over by more hardy subclimax species, then zebra do better than what wildebeest do. So I hope that answers your question, Stephen. Goodness, these ellies have been around this pan for a long time. I know it is the hallmark. We've obviously noted that the bull elephant, in particular at Oldonyo in Kenya, tend to spend a large amount of time, and an unusual amount of time at these pans, just being. Not only do they tend to concentrate their drinking around the inlet pipes, which is where these elephants have got their trunks now, and it's a trickle of water, so it takes a long time for them to get the 200 liters that they need in a day, and they really aren't keen on drinking out of the pan itself, unlike the zebra and the oryx and the eland. And so it's understandable that they do spend time, but you'd think that with it being dry, they just drink and then carry on to a shade.
Get ready for your daily dose of African wildlife magic. Be enchanted by the intimate moments shared by the animals as they drink, play, and interact in their natural habitat. With our daily wildlife videos, you'll experience the thrill of safari adventures without ever having to leave your seat. Let the wild adventure unfold right before your eyes. Africam, always live, always wild.
But listen, your car should be new again. The guys are coming to fix it. Yeah, well, I bought that shit part and then I had to renew my car and they didn't have it back to me. So I think it must be back to me before
The southern oryx is what we're having a look at now, as opposed to the fringe-eared oryx, which we have a look at commonly in uh, in Kenya. So where we were at Oldonyo now, we were looking at, or we at times we look at the fringe-eared oryx. This is the common oryx, southern oryx, um, and for me, the prettier of the two. um, I quite enjoy the grey and the black, and they're a little bit bigger, and their horns tend to be longer, particularly the females. And in this very white environment on the edge of this salt pan, you can see from space, they just stick out. And I don't know, here and in the central Kalahari, which is another place that's very close to my heart, I've enjoyed watching oryx more than any other antelope. Again, it's just a matter of preference, personal preference. You see these swallows
yes, there was some lacquer
picking up
when you were in the
water.
booth and the oryx should have came in a whole line.
It's tough to see exactly what swallows they are. They're fairly large. You see them flying in, picking up water, and they'll use that water to help build their nests. They build their nests out of mud. Yeah, back to the oryx that we're seeing here in the center. We've got a fairly large herd of oryx coming in. Really aggressive antelope, to be honest. And you hear stories as a field guide of how personal accounts have witnessed oryx fighting lion off with their horns by reversing into a bush or standing on top of a termite mound and going down on their knees and fending lions off for minutes, if not hours. And about how they are able to flick stones with their horns. If you lob a stone at them, they can flick the stone. I've never seen either. I've never seen lion hunting an oryx, and I've never thrown a stone at it.
I think it looks like it's going to go for lower.
I've never thrown a stone at an oryx, and so I've never seen them flick it. But
so we've got a 2 window there.
Definitely enjoy them, to be honest with you.
But let them all come in there. Everything is COVID. I was ripping off Malcolm with his mask.
So oryx are, they very suited to the dry areas of this the bushveld, and more arid areas. You definitely see that they do better in the drier areas. And interestingly, they feed mainly at nighttime. So they spend the day usually hiding out in the shade or trekking incredible distances across the bush to come and drink water where they can. So this is obviously a unique and open body of water, and these oryx will spend a large portion of the day walking between where they feed and getting some water. They don't have to drink. They can get a lot of their water from the plants and bushes that they eat, so they don't need water, but will use water when it's available. But coming back to them feeding at nighttime, they tend to feed at night mainly because the bushes and sedges that they enjoy eating have a higher water content at nighttime than they have during the day. Plants in these desert environments retract water out of their leaves and store it in their roots in the daytime, and then will pump their leaves up at nighttime and pump water into their leaves. And then the oryx have realized this and are utilizing it. find quite interesting, to be honest. And they're also quite prolific diggers. So in areas without an abundance of surface water, you'll find that oryx, very similar to elephant, will dig for water in dry riverbeds. So they can smell water or they can sense it somehow below the surface and will use their quite sharply pointed triangular hooves to dig for water. I noticed that one of the oryx approaching this water now is a female with incredibly long horns. See if you can spot her. A bit far away. We've zoomed out a bit too much, but as mentioned before, the females tend to have longer, more shapely horns. And it was just, I noticed that one of these females had a massive set of horns. Such such a great thing being able to spend so much time with these video feeds in these remote areas. To give you an idea, we often flit away between the Greater Kruger National Park and Kimberley and Kenya and Etosha. I've spent a lifetime traveling around these areas, and it took me, let's see, I drove from the Kruger National Park to Johannesburg. That was 550 kilometers. In Johannesburg to the panhandle of the Okavango Delta. That took me 2 days, well over 1,000 kilometers. Gosh, I can't even remember how far, but many, many, many hundreds and thousands of kilometers, and 2 days of driving solidly. And I spent some time there just recuperating. And then it took us a day and a half, no, a day, to get to Etosha. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 days of driving. And we're talking about driving, 8, 9, 10 hours a day at 100, 120 kilometers an hour. So give an idea of how far it is to get from where we are. And we do in a flick of a button. In fact, I'll tell you exactly how far it is now. So just give me 1 second. It was over 2,000 kilometers and took me 4 days to do. And these oryx have now finished drinking. They won't drink much. Although we see a lot of springbuck and oryx, they're actually the most drought-resistant animals that we find around this pan, actually. Obviously, now we have our next set of animals moving in. You can see some zebra coming in there in the background. I always look at this pan and I think, gosh, it's so desolate. Now, even when you're there, the pan feels the same size. It's not like there's a camera angle here that's making it look further than it is. Those bushes in the far bank there are far away. It's a proper walk across this Kelp Creek pan to get to this water. And I imagine that food resources are even further. So these animals are walking a significant period of the day. It's crazy.
Are you looking to take your bond with the wild to the next level? Download our app and access in-depth chats with our naturalists and special guests. Connect and converse in real time on our Ask Me Anythings, fireside chats, hangouts, and town halls. WeChat, available on the WildEarth app. WildEarth, we are Safari. So the zebra that you're having a look at there, they are feeding on grass mainly. Not on this plane. It doesn't look like there's a grass stick within 20 miles of where they are.
The springbuck will feed on grass as well and sedges, although be a lot more specific about what they decide to eat. And then the kudu that have just arrived, which are those dark antelope on the left, one trotting in, there's two or three of them there, three of them. They are browsers. They browse leaves and twigs, and a lot of them. They have probably next to the elephant, one of the widest ranging diets of leaves and twigs out here, upwards of 150 different species, which means that they will definitely find a lot to eat here. Yeah, very different ways of feeding and using the bush to survive. And the zebra, not one of them decided to swim yet today, and the springbuck have only sort of peripherally entered the water. The kudu we've never seen. Well, I've never seen a kudu swim. So it's just the zebra and the springbuck. But it looks like the breeze, coupled with the temperature today, means that we don't have any profound swimmers. We had one just now wade in. Yeah, nothing spectacular for them. And there's a dust devil going across the center left of the screen. Have a look at that. They will become ever more common as the temperatures rise. You get columns of them. It's not uncommon to see 3 or 4 or 5 of them in the same picture. But yeah, we're coming to the end of the show, and I just want to say thank you very much for all your support. To be honest with you, without your eyes on the screen, none of this would be possible, and I would be a much poorer man for it, in terms of the experience that I have with you today. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for sending through all your questions. We really, really do appreciate the support. That, and to all the partners of WildEarth and Africam and all the different companies that work with us, and just humbled by how epic this whole show is. And then, of course, notwithstanding the staff that we have that bring all of this to you and all the hard work that they put into producing a show like this, and troubleshooting and resourcing it.